Folks, happy Wednesday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. And thank you for tuning in to our special Thanksgiving edition. I had a day off from my normal podcast I do during the week with Wayne Dupree. Todd, usually this is his non-podcasting day for the American Tribune Live. And I'm like, Todd, we've got to go spend some time with our peeps. I'm so excited to be here. Let me introduce my co-host.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, folks. Let us be the first ones to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And the theme of the show, we didn't sneak it in the title because, big tech and all that, but I'm so excited for tomorrow, Jason. Like, the theme of the show is truly how the left is melting down with Donald Trump's victory. And I have a family rule. I'm never the first to engage. But man, if someone asks me about the election tomorrow, it is game on and we are off to the races.
Oh my gosh. And I got to say, there's just so much stuff. Sorry, I got to do a little camera adjustment there. I'm all crooked. What's up with that? I haven't had that much coffee. Yeah, Thanksgiving. Jen and I are lucky because we don't do those big family gatherings like a lot. We'll have the kids over tonight. Then tomorrow we won't be going around. But Todd, living vicariously through him, it's like we go to this one and that one, and we got the liberals. And it's fascinating. I'm going to give a shout out to Todd because he was kind of my inspiration for this idea, because on Monday he did this like 30-minute show on the American Tribune Live that said, what was the title of it again, Todd?
Was it the property tax one?
Or no.
The last Folks Monday, if you go over to the American Tribune Live channel with Todd Peterson, I did half an hour ranting about how I do not want unity. Jason, I'm going to give a 30-second synopsis of the entire episode. I don't want unity because these people deserve none. And all you have to do is look at the counter example to say, what would have happened in this country? What would have happened to you if Donald Trump had lost the election? Trump is in prison. All the J6ers, all the people that breed abortion clinics, regular folks out there are going to continue to stay in prison or get targeted for prison simply for supporting their political opponent. They would not have asked for unity. They would have not sought unity. They would have just run right over you as a patriot of this country. So they don't deserve unity. And we will have unity for everyone out there saying, oh, Donald Trump needs to turn down the temperature in the nation. Absolutely not. The temperature is where it is because of Democrat rhetoric, because of corporate media rhetoric. And there will be unity when they come crawling back to us and they say, you know what? Thank you for voting for Trump and saving this country. When they watch crime go down, illegals get deported, when they watch all the woke insanity come to a stop, when they look around and they say, gosh, Donald Trump's 4 years have been amazing for this country, that is when we will have unity. We do not need olive branches. We do not need compromises. They are communists. They deserve no quarter. We will have peace and unity in this country when Donald Trump makes this country great again. How about that, Jason?
Oh, my God. It was funny. I saw, because we don't know, like Todd does his own content creation. And I saw his video and I was listening to it. I'm like, pump this in my veins. Pump this in. And that's kind of the theme of today because, like Todd said, President Trump, we've covered ad nauseum all the things they've done to target him, his supporters. You have a MAGA flag up. What are they going to do to you? You can't wear your MAGA hat. They're going to spit in your food. If you're a January 6er, congratulations, you're thrown in jail for 2 years without a trial. And these idiots on the left. Now, I'm not talking about all of them. There's a few normal ones, which we'll talk about later. But they're like, oh, yeah, insurrection, throw them in jail. No trial, no due process. Oh, you said something I don't like on social media. Delete your account. Oh, yeah. Well, Donald Trump, if he's innocent, he'll get his day in court. And if all the lawyers that represented him, they'll get their days in court. Well, you know what, folks? It's time for the left to face their days in court. Adam Schiff, get ready. Get ready for your day in court. All the media outlets that knowingly lied, get ready for your day in court. I am so ready. And here's the thing, like, you can't be in a fight where you're the only one getting punched in the face. Because, I remember as a young kid, had gotten a few scraps. And my dad taught me this. He's like, you never start the fight, but you finish it. And I remember I get beat up by this kid. And then my next time, and then, and I start fighting back. The kid's like, oh, whoa. And then the next time, like, same thing happened. My dad said, you just need to finish it, son. And I finished it. And that was the last time we had to deal with this again. But if Donald Trump doesn't finish it, if he doesn't bring in this administration that holds all these horrible people accountable, it's going to keep going because Democrats are going to win another election. And when they get power, if they don't understand those same things are going to be used against them. They're just going to keep going.
Yeah, Jason, great points there. Yeah, Trump family, Jack Smith needs a day in court. It's amazing, Jason, how they're dropping and dismissing all these Trump cases now that Trump won. And again, they did it for political reasons only to sway the outcomes of the election. They wanted to push a false narrative. Make no mistake, they would have thrown him in prison anyways under fake pretenses, but it was all a ruse to get people out there, just normie voters, like, oh, he's a felon. And that's the narrative. Oh, we can't believe we elected a convicted felon. Notice that all those cases are going away now because it wasn't real. It was just a gigantic hoax.
Well, and that's what's really funny too. So I mentioned earlier kind of the normie Democrats. And if you look, and we've done some articles on it on the AmericanTribune.com, right now viewership of CNN, MSNBC, all the liberal networks have cratered. I mean, the Hallmark Channel beat CNN and MSNBC, the Hallmark Channel, folks. And here's what it had to be. These people are, and you normally, when the other party wins the election, the losing parties, like, viewership goes up because they're like, oh my gosh. But I think so many of these normies, they sat there and they watched and they're like, oh yeah, they keep telling me Kamala's going to win easy and Donald Trump's a fascist and all these lies. And then afterwards they lose. First thing they do is like, yeah, we need a peaceful transition of power. Let's meet with rah, rah, rah. And so their brains are breaking, going, oh my God, what just happened? Like, these people I've been watching for years that told me he was a fascist, suddenly Joe Biden's having coffee with him and talking about a nice, smooth transition. And Kamala, they told me she was way up and she was doing great. Now it comes out, and it's not been confirmed. So there's some speculation that all of her internal polling had her losing the whole time. And they're actually major donors that are exploring suing her because she's doing these big fundraisers for these billion-dollar guys. And she, oh yeah, our internal polling's great. And then so they're giving her millions of dollars. And then it turns out, oh, I'm losing. And she knew it the whole time.
Isn't that just a separate conversation altogether? Like, the lies of polls that get out in public. Here's Seltzer from Iowa saying Kamala's going to win Iowa. They are doing campaigns in Florida and Idaho. So if you're a voter in those states, you're like, Trump's going to win the state. But then they have their own internal numbers. Why don't we all get access to the same numbers? Folks, if that doesn't convince you that everything on media is a lie, a pure lie, polls are used to shift narratives and make you think, well, Trump's losing, so I guess I'll go for Kamala or stay home. Just one more example of how the media lies to you.
Well, and it's funny you talk, that Stelter one was funny. So what Todd's referring to, if you remember, we talked about it on the show, but the day before the election, Iowa, which is solidly Republican, and it doesn't matter, and they're very Trumpy down there too, not just Republican but Trumpy. It came out where Kamala had like a 3-point lead, like the day before the election. And I think Trump won by 14 or something in Iowa. It was remarkable. But after that, she actually retired. That's how poorly it went.
She took a nice little paycheck from somebody and retired.
Right. She said, I'm done with this. This is just not going very well.
Yeah, but folks, Jason, we got some videos I want to get into, but just kind of theming up the show again about how tomorrow is going to be great. If you get into these conversations with your family, there is so much to point out. Like, they are on the wrong side of all of this now. And I love your comment, Jason, about how the media ratings are tanking. In 2016, when Trump won, I think CNN enjoyed the best ratings they ever had, because for 4 years, people were still naive enough to think like, oh, they're telling the truth. Like, yeah, they're going to get Trump this time, whether it's Comey or Mueller or the impeachments. Like, they had a new hoax every single year, and voters were like, this is it. In 2024, rather than watching those numbers boost up, CNN is cratering. That could not be more indicative of the fact that people have had it and they see through the corporate media lies. X is where the truth is. But man, tomorrow, ask them, like, what do you actually believe at this point? Like, do you really think he's the villain, or do you not see that the corporate media is the villain?
Right. Well, and actually, before we get to the videos, Todd, I just want to show a tweet. Can you pull up the thing where I can show a tweet on it? Because you mentioned polling, and just the window where I can pull up the
Jason, or do you want to drop it in the chat for me?
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat for you. Look at this.
While you're doing that, we got Laura Graham saying, I miss Walter Cronkite. I am not old enough to have watched Walter Cronkite. I will say this. I think we miss the days when we thought the media was honest, but having been a student of history and having woken up to the media lies today, and you could go back into time immemorial to be like, they're lying to you about things. I think it's safe to say Walter Cronkite also lied, but he lied in a nicer way. And when you only had 3 television networks, it was a lot harder to debunk. Maybe you missed the pretend nice that was going on, but make no mistake, the media was always lying to you. And I'll use Vietnam as an example, and then Jason, I'll pull up your tweet. We got into Vietnam over the Gulf of Tonkin, which turns out to have been a complete lie the entire time. So Walter Cronkite's out there reporting saying, hey, the USS Maddox got hit by the North Vietnamese. We better go to war against Vietnam. You got lied to. So there's my example of Walter.
And it's fascinating because, and we're going to play this Dilly. Oh yeah, Mark hits the nail on the head. What you mean his corporate CIA media? Fact check true. CIA, FBI, 3-letter agencies. Todd referred to tweets. I'm just showing everybody this just so they can understand what we're talking about. So on this show, we tell you to ignore polls. The internal polling that people have is different than the polling that they put on, on the mainstream TV. And one of the pollsters that I follow, and I'll recommend people follow, is Rich Barris. Rich Barris is one of the good guys, let's just say, where he Todd, our thing's all funny.
Yeah, sharing screens is here. Let me see if I can.
Attaboy. But if you look at this is the actual results. Poll Watch, who aggregates polls, they come out and they say who was the most accurate pollsters off after the polls were done. And because you've been lied to and all this garbage for months. And now if you look at the ones that are on there, Rich Barris and Big Data Polling, number one, he was off by 0.1%. Wall Street Journal, they had Trump +2. They're off by 0.4. Atlas Intel, Activate, New York Times, Siena, Rasmussen Reports, Qantas Insight, SoCal Strategies. Most of these are polling companies you never heard of. And these were all the most accurate pollsters. They were all the ones showing Trump leading in the popular vote. Now, if you watch CNN or any of these other liberal pollsters, like these people were convinced that Kamala Harris was up by 5% or up by 3% or that kind of thing. It's just ridiculous.
It's so fake. It is so fake. Honestly, people, I love this, Jason, because people don't know what we do in our circles. They're like, can you tell me what your job is again? You left a good paying corporate job or a good paying job in this sector, and now you yell on your computer for a couple hours. They have no idea what we do. And I had a friend, actually a normie friend, who's like, oh, both sides bad, Trump's bad. Kamala's worse, but Trump's bad, so I won't vote in this election. He's like, you purvey fake news. Like, oh, you're on the right side, so you must spread misinformation. Automatically, by being on the right, you spread misinformation. That is their worldview. And I asked him, where do you get your news from? And this moron, I like him, he's a friend, but like, you are a moron if you think this. He's like, I watch mainstream news. And you're just like, you could not be more misinformed than
yes.
You watch CNN and you think that's real news. That's cute.
Well, and what I love too is like when we talk about stuff, like I was talking to future son-in-law about the unemployment rate, and I'm like, the government's lying to you. He's like, the unemployment rate's fine. Like it's all over the news. Even the TikTokers are talking about it. I'm like, the unemployment rate's about 10%. And he's like, whatever. So he owes me some money for his furnace. And I go, okay, tell you what, double or nothing. If I'm right, we double what you owe me. And if you're right, I will half what you, or I'll get rid of all your debt. And he's like, well, how are you going to prove it? I'm like, well, I'll just pull up the government report. And he's like, well, I'm not going to take that bet. Okay. So you're not confident enough. So I pull up the Department of Labor report and it's like, there's X million Americans, 4% are unemployed. And then the next paragraph is, oh, by the way, there's 5% of Americans that we no longer count because they gave up looking. So you add 4% plus 5%. It was like 9.8%. He's like, oh, but he believes we spread fake news. I'm like, I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics report and pulled it up. Like, this isn't some QAnon message board I went to.
Yeah, and Jason, we have our own opinions, and we let our audience know when we're opining on something. But it's like, folks, we are telling you that the polls that you saw on corporate media were straight up lies, and I can prove that by saying Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have their own internal polling. And Jason shared a great tweet here. He's saying, look, you don't know about any of these people that were most accurate. All you heard was, I got Seltzer in Iowa. I got CNN getting excited about Kamala winning Florida. I think the AP said Florida was a swing state. Like, that is the level of lying taking place. These are not opinions. We are factually telling you that you got lied to in those mainstream polls.
And it's fascinating, too, because there's a million stories written before the election about the polls. And then after the election, like, nobody reports other than news outlets like us. Because, like, when the next election comes up, these are going to be the pollsters we're going to go look at. We're going to look at who was most accurate the last several poll cycles. That's who we'll look at. So, Todd, should we start with that Dilly video?
I think we need to.
This is a shout out. Somebody, I forget the guy's name. It's Misinformation California guy. I can't remember how you pronounce it. He's part of the Dilly meme team. He put together a great video that I thought our audience would enjoy. So shout out to them. I don't know why Dilly's got me blocked on Twitter, which is weird, but I love the work the meme team does. Brandy with the B, all those guys on there. This video, this encapsulates what you're going to experience at Thanksgiving. Oh, and this is the first time Todd's watching it.
Yeah, I'm watching with you, folks. This will be good.
I got to worry about it? First of all, I'm not going to worry about it, Phil, because he's not going to win.
He is not going to win.
She's going to win easily.
Is hope and joy rising?
Victory is in sight in less than 3 weeks.
I think that he loses.
We just made history.
How do you like my garbage truck?
But you still can't see. Freedom is good, communism bad. You thought that you could cheat. Now we laugh at your history beat. America survived, now you shave your head. Less God we require, more control you desire. Your plans are screwed as crying now. Kamala shouldn't have run. You've been dealing with easily won. Democrats are screwed as crying now. The hatred you ignite, division you incite, neither can stop the mega wave.
Are you okay? I think I'm okay.
Telling us to turn the page. Now for the machine you rage. No one believes a word you say. Less God we require, more control you desire. Your plans are screwed as crying now. Rock stars do what they told. Hollywood reaping old. We all laugh at you as you're crying now. There's only so many tears you can cry. As your life quickly improves, and then you will see President Trump was always right. The best is yet to come.
Can't wait for the
Todd, your
copyright.
thoughts.
Oh, it's so glorious. I have said for a long time, well, since November 5th, the only thing better, well, Donald Trump winning had to win. That is the best thing that could have happened. The second best thing, though, is watching libs melt down. It never gets old. I can watch this on repeat. I can watch all these videos of the wiping away tears and the wondering what happened. How did this happen? It's so good.
I gotta say, to me, this reminds me of like The Princess Bride, where every time I watch it, I pick something else up from it, and I just find it funnier and funnier and funnier. I mean, there's so much to unpack. Like at the beginning, when they go through all these people, Bill Maher and Scaramucci and Oprah, all these people. Oh, he's got no chance. Oh, he's got no chance. Oh, he's got no chance. Folks, your friends and family that are lefties watch this garbage for years. And there wasn't even this race will be close. Oh, this will be a thing. Everybody flat out was lied to and said Trump has no chance. And now they're sitting there and they're going, not only did Donald Trump win, but it wasn't particularly close.
Yeah, and to be sure, they were not wrong. They didn't make a mistake. They lied to you intentionally. And I would posit that is election interference because Kamala's campaign allegedly knew the internal numbers. I believe they had internal numbers that showed she was losing. The media certainly would have known she was losing. You could put your finger in the wind and be like, nobody's excited about Kamala Harris. She is the worst candidate we have ever seen run for a political party, for a major political party. You could just not even turn on the news, read the paper. You could just go outside and be like, it feels like Trump's going to win this. They lied to you intentionally.
Right. And so they're reaching the fact our news media and our politician, they all lied. And you can't be this far off and like my projections were wrong. And some of these people are so traumatized by the loss. Todd, do you want to explain what this is?
What is it? Something 4B4 or
I think 4D or something like that.
I don't know what they call it. It's some movement though, which is hilarious and also what we've been advocating for years. So these delusional women are shaving their heads and they're going to say, we're abstaining. We're no longer giving up our bodies willingly. And we're not going to have sex anymore with guys because we're really going to stick it to the patriarchy and society and civilization by making better choices with our body. And Jason, the hilarity, the irony is that we have been saying this. Society function better in a monogamous situation. Wait till marriage, limit your partners, decide who to have sex with or not. And now these women, because they're so mad at Trump, are making our dreams come true to make a better world. Like, don't sleep around.
I gotta say, it's like Donald Trump is already making America great again because we start with like all these women. I think this was, and somebody can fact check me, a 4D movement or something they called it in like South Korea, where you don't get married, you don't have kids, you don't have sex or any of that stuff. So this took off on TikTok. All these women shave their heads so they're easily identifiable. And with the shaved head, it's like we're going to abstain from just having loosey-goosey sex because you're going to take our abortion rights away, even though it's not a federal issue. And I love it because, like Todd said, we've been saying you need to have monogamous relationships. We've been saying quit sleeping around. Like, don't make babies you don't want to raise. And they're doing it. It's the greatest. It's the greatest Trump, ever.
There are so many victories on so many levels. Like women might, they're not coming into it for the right reason. And they're not, let's be honest, they're not going to keep this up forever. These women can't abstain for the rest of their lives. But you got this story where Trump's winning, trying to set right society vis-a-vis men and women's relationships. We did a story with the Washington Redskins getting their name back. You've got peace getting, the Biden administration is going to take credit for the peace deal between Israel and Hezbollah. Make no mistake, that was Donald Trump's victory that led to that peace because they know what's coming up in a few. Like he is winning everywhere, just everywhere.
It's phenomenal. And then all those Hollywood stars, and I kind of clicked past it in the video. How many Hollywood stars came out? Cardi B and all these musicians I never heard of that evidently they all got famous by shaking their booty while they were scantily clad and talking about sex. It's coming out. Kamala Harris paid them all. And it's funny because you got to watch the wording, and we'll have to watch this for Facebook. Like Oprah Oprah's production company was paid $2 million to have Kamala Harris on it. Now, Oprah says, truthfully, I wasn't paid. No, you weren't paid. Your production company was paid. And I can't imagine it costs $2 million to put on an interview with Kamala Harris. Are you kidding me? Cardi B was paid. Beyonce was paid.
Or not singing.
All
I was
those
going to bring up
celebrities.
Beyonce. They paid Beyonce millions of dollars to give a 3-minute speech and not perform a song, and everyone was there because they don't care about Kamala. They're like, oh, I'll go to this rally if Beyonce is singing. Nope, didn't even do that.
Right. And now it comes out the Kamala Harris campaign. So keep in mind, she wants to be in charge of your finances as a nation. They raised $1.4 billion, most ever spent on a political campaign in the history of mankind. And they came out in the hole. They laid off a bunch of staffers, a bunch of people that they had promised money to. They can't pay. It's just a remarkable thing.
Yeah, my takeaway from the Harris campaign, too, if you want to drill down. So I think X single-handedly swung the election. If Elon Musk doesn't buy Twitter a couple years ago, this doesn't happen because now we have a real source of news. You've got citizen journalists, independent journalists. They report better. They have better information than any of the corporate media outlets do. And then you look at the Kamala headquarters. She had a team of 10 gender studies majors trying to pump out lies every day. And then you look at Trump's social media team. It was 3 dudes that zinned up all the time. This is where we're at, though. Corporate media and this entire Democrat machine of pushing out fake news, it's done. They had billions of dollars. They had massive teams. They had the entire media apparatus on their side, and Americans still saw through it. Honestly, Jason, I have no idea where the corporate media landscape, what it turns into in the next 4 years, because it's done. Corporate media is done.
Well, and it's remarkable, too, because one of the more exciting things Donald Trump's talking about, he was hugely successful. And shout out to Barron Trump. It sounds like he gave him the advice. He's like, Dad, go on these podcasts. More people watch them. So he went through a bunch of podcasts, with the culmination being Joe Rogan. And I tell you what, if you haven't watched Donald Trump and JD Vance, Joe Rogan's episodes, you need to go watch them. Just go turn them on, have them playing in the background while you're doing housework or whatnot. 2 relatable, normal, funny dudes. And you watch that, and even if you've got your lefty, family member that's going to be screaming at you about how Donald Trump's racist, just make them watch the Joe Rogan thing. The guy comes off as a normal guy. I mean, he's quirky, he's a little weird, but hey, we're weird too, right? And well, maybe not Todd. But anyways, it was just a whole new strategy, a whole new team, and it was great. And I had to stop it on Tim Walz because we're from Minnesota. I have loved the fact that Tim Walz has been exposed for the awful fraud he is. Todd, your thoughts?
We live here. I didn't know about most of this. Yeah, we could blame ourselves a little bit, but talk about media cover-ups. Tim Walz, it comes out, stolen valor. I think that was the biggest ding against him. What a disgusting human being. But then so many other things. I did an entire 2-hour episode, if you go to the American Tribune Live channel, 2 hours of debunking Tim Walz's just serial lying. He lies about everything. And that, set aside the line, even if he told the truth, his policies are just awful. He couldn't even answer truthfully on the debate stage with JD Vance that, yes, Minnesota allows you to let a baby expire after a failed abortion and it's delivered. He didn't have the stones or the courage to admit that. They all know their policies are unpopular. They all know they're terrible. They do them anyways, and then they pretend they don't know anything about it. But Walz's policies are awful. I wish there would have been more pushback against his tyranny during the pandemic. But man, Walz is just a buffoon, and his wife is verifiably insane. She had that quote that she loved the smell of burning rubber during the BLM riots in 2020. She's on stage with those googly eyes, the eyes, you don't even know what's happening to her eyes. And she just speaks to you like you're 5. So maybe that's why Kamala Harris likes her. They both speak to you like you're a child.
Well, and she is one of, if not the most cringe people I've ever seen. At some level, these politicians, you want to think to yourself, oh, would I have them over at a barbecue? Would I want to hang out with them? Maybe not that you'll ever get the opportunity to, but are they at least somewhat relatable? And I mean, Tim Walz's wife comes across as the icky person at the barbecue that if she's there, you will do anything you can to be on the opposite side of the room and not engaging with her at all.
Yeah, and like I wonder, do they just love the attention? I don't remember JD Vance's wife doing all that many rally presentations or speeches. Tim Walz's wife, yeah, she's not the one running. She married him well before he had aspirations for office, maybe. But like, why is she up there? Who thought it would be a good idea to put Gwen Walz up there? They want the attention so bad. They're not normal people. Yeah, like you said, you listen to Trump or Vance talk at length. They're just dudes. Vance curses a lot. I think that's great. He's just a regular person. But Gwen Walz, I mean, it's clear that she is not well, and it's clear she just has no grasp on any issues. Just turn the page. Turn the page.
Well, yeah, and the other thing to talk about too is, the reaction to some of these people that, like, on election day, like, they were shocked that President Trump won. And that's the one thing I will say for some of these people, like, they're serial liars. Like, they just read the sheet that's put in front of them. But you wonder what soul searching these people are going through right now, where let's say they really believe that Kamala was winning and it was going to be a landslide because that's what their producers told them. And these are just actors and actresses. They aren't journalists. They aren't going to look stuff up. They literally just sit there and go, hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? And so you wonder what they're going through, where they're like, we told them like Kamala was going to win easily. And now she got her butt kicked.
I mean, there was a clip. I don't have it here. I think we actually did it on the AmericanTribune.com where Whoopi Goldberg actually calls out someone else on the show. Like, she has a moment of sanity and clarity. And Morning Joe famously went to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee, and they come back and they're like, we're going to report honestly about Donald Trump. Like, number one, I don't believe that either. This is them saving, this is CYA to the extreme. They see that the ratings are tanking. They don't want to lose their job. So they're going to pretend to be more moderate now. Like, I do not believe them. That's as much fake news as what they were saying before when they were like, Trump's going to lose. But it's all a lie. Like you said, they're all actors out there. I would posit this, Jason. I think this would be a great question for your family members tomorrow at Thanksgiving. Do you trust the media at all anymore? And get your foot in the door to have a conversation like, this is why we voted for Donald Trump. You are delusional about everything, but like, honestly, after Russia, after impeachment, after these felonies, after he's going to lose in a landslide to Kamala Harris, the worst candidate ever, like, honestly, do you still trust the media? Like, I don't know how you can at this point. The pandemic, they lied to you about everything. Like, seriously, folks, do you still trust the media after this? They should be reflecting. And if they're not reflecting now, after everything we've been through, they are hopeless. They are truly hopeless.
Yes. Oh, hey, shout out to Fally joined us
today. Hey, Fally.
Fally, happy Thursday or happy Wednesday. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for tuning in over on the Rumble. We didn't know who we'd get because normally we just do Fridays, but God, this is so much fun. Todd, how excited are you about Dodge?
I'm going to say this, Jason. I'm going to be the rain cloud right away. Let me pull up a tweet if I can find it really fast. So I'm excited. It has to happen. Like, yes, we need to have the conversation about gutting the government. Let me see really fast here, because this is kind of where my head was, and this person just says it a little bit better. Here we go. This is from Jeremy Kaufman. He's a New Hampshire libertarian doing awesome things in New Hampshire here, but he writes this. So Charlie Kirk had a tweet. It said, the people love Doge. A new poll shows that 71%. And again, my thought is always, who are these 29% that don't want to cut government waste? So absolutely delusional, but 71% of Americans support its mission to cut government waste and efficiency. Here is his reply, and this is where I'm at as well. He says, unless regulatory cuts unleash massive growth, and he's talking 5% or greater real GDP, America has to do one of the followings, and this is huge. Number one, you have to substantially reduce military spending, cut Social Security benefits, cease or drastically cut medical care for the elderly, cease or drastically cut medical care for the poor, cease or drastically cut SNAP, Section 8, and other low-income programs. And he makes that argument because those 5 things that I just listed off account for 90% of the federal budget, of federal spending. So yeah, if you're doing Doge and you're working on the fringe and you're going to say, we're going to take away funding from NPR, or we're going to go after the Department of Agriculture or Department of Education, like, those are all good things. Make no mistake. Unless you tackle the top 5 spending features of our government that are 90% of the federal government, Doge isn't really accomplishing its mission. That's my sentiment. That's obviously the sentiment of this libertarian. He has a different view on government spending in general, but like, unless you after the big stuff, like you're really not making a difference. That's my
Well,
rain cloud
here's what
speech.
I'll say, and Neil hits the nail on the head. The 29% of the ones going to lose
right.
their job.
Who are these people?
Here's my prediction, and Doge is going to be a huge first step. The ultimate answer that we need to solve is Social Security. Todd and I have done multiple episodes on Social Security, on unfunded liabilities, it's called, which are the Social Security. For those who don't know, there is no money for Social Security. The money you're getting, if you're getting a Social Security check today, is coming out of my paycheck and your kids' paychecks. And then when I retire, my money's already gone. So I'm hoping my kids are paying in Social Security to pay my benefits. That's how it works. I don't think Donald Trump is going to touch unfunded liabilities. It is a political third rail. And here's what I'll say is, while it's one of the biggest issues to tackle, if he tries to touch it, everything else stops. Nothing else will happen in the administration. What I like about Doge is I think, one, we have huge overhead with government workers. And on one hand, government workers are very non-productive. On the other hand, you have all these illegals and all these jobs. They say, well, we need illegals to do it, to harvest the crops. Government worker, illegals go. You now have people to harvest the crops. And I'm being literal, where when people are unemployed, they take jobs. Now, that will force the employer to actually pay living wages and do things like that. Like, that will happen. But long term, that's what you need to do in order to get the economy going. And when you start shutting down these agencies, you're going to save costs. You're going to unleash Americans. I mean, the U.S. government is the biggest employer in the history of employers. And I hearken back to Ross Perot, first person I ever voted for. The government is structured inefficiently. It has multiple people do multiple jobs. Just the whole thing's awful. And what's happened the last 20 years is all these agencies create regulations that make it harder for Todd and I to be business people. And like that, I think that will be the big thing that'll happen, is they'll start shutting down departments. The other thing that Vivek talked about, and this is one thing that's weird with government budgets. So I worked in the private sector. A lot of our viewers work in the private sector. Not once did somebody come to me and say, well, your budget's next year just 10% more. But that's how the federal government works. They just take whatever your budget is and they bump it up. You know, for me, they created incentives for me to save money, to spend less, to cut expenses, to cut payroll, all those things. And then many times you get your new budget and it's like, okay, your supply budget for next year is down 5%. That doesn't happen with federal bureaucracies. Just every year keeps going up and up and up.
Well, and it's even worse than that, Jason, because to justify the budget, you have to spend this year's money in its entirety. And so not only are you getting free money next year, a raise for no reason, you have to zero out your account for this year and just waste money on anything to justify next year's budget as well. It's just a compounding issue.
Now, talk about that, because you were in the school system. You probably have some funny stories, like end of the year.
How long do we have here? Yeah, I was in the government school system. I left as an assistant principal. I no longer wanted to be the bad guy telling kids they were bad for being white, or telling kids that it's okay that you think you're a boy. And actually, you don't even think you're a boy. You are a boy, even though your name is Susan. But talking about all of these programs with money, they would say, Todd, you've got $5,000 for your literacy program, and we're going to budget $5,000, maybe $6,000 next year for the budget program, but we need to see that you're using it. We need to see that it's there. So, okay, it's May. We're almost done with the school year, and we got $1,000 left. Let's have a reading party. Let's just go out and spend $1,000. We got to hit zero to show district office, yes, we actually need all this money because it's so crucial to kids learning. So crucial that we spent $1,000 on the last day of school for a reading party, and that will really help literacy scores. Yeah, it's such a fraud. It is all such a waste.
Isn't it funny, too, that that's like, if we ran, like Todd and I, we're business partners. We run the American Tribune properties. Can you imagine a world if we ran our business like that? And it was funny. I was chatting with somebody, you know, we were going back and forth on Twitter about I'm like, yeah, you need to cut, like, you need to get to cutting 70% of the federal government. Like, I'm convinced that's about the number of the departments of regulation. And once again, and Todd's right, the biggest issue too is unfunded liabilities. But we've got to solve these other problems too, and there's momentum in the country to solve them, so let's solve them. And they're like 70%. I'm like, I worked in a company, like my first employer was Sears Roebuck and Company. Sears Roebuck and Company, they weren't running their business profitably. Can you go to a Sears Roebuck and Company anymore, Todd?
I can see buildings where they have like the stain of the sign that got taken down. So it doesn't seem like they're there anymore.
No, I was with them, and then I observed them where they were run poorly and they laid people off. They shut down stores. And these government workers, like, cry me a river if people are worried about, oh, what's going to happen with all these unemployed people. I would go to work at a private company every week, like when I was a store manager, and like, if this store isn't profitable, I show up and my job's gone. And that's the reality that most people watching our show. Now, for Todd and I, we're self-employed. If we don't make money, like, we don't pay our bills. If we aren't creating content that people like, or doing things people enjoy, or whatnot. And we live that, like, that's America. Like, you need to produce, and if you don't produce, like, you're out of business.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I know I started with my rain cloud speech there, but I'm with you 100%, Jason. Number one, it sends a powerful message to the government apparatus. Number two, it helps inform people to be like, oh, wait, we didn't need a federal Department of Education. But number three, I'm coming up with this on the fly here, so correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, politicians are awful, but we also have a chance to get new politicians. We can't do anything about all of the unelected bureaucrats and these pencil pushers in Washington, D.C. that collect six figures, a comfortable pension. Like, those people, I have no decision whether or not they get hired and fired or remain in the basement, like in the movie Office Space. Like, he's just on payroll. Like, these unelected bureaucrats have got to go.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point too, because those bureaucracies facilitate our politicians not doing their job. And let me explain. If you're a member of the House of Representatives, your number one job for the House of Representatives is to create a federal government budget. And you're supposed to, there's like 12 or 13 components to it. You have committees, you flush out the budgets. That's job number one for the House of Representatives. They haven't done a budget. They've done it one time in like 25 years. Every year there's continuing resolution, all that. Well, because they're not doing that job, they've got all this time to do all this stupid stuff. They also, if they want to pass a law, like a new regulation, they should be passing it in Congress. Like, hey, we want to limit this, we want to limit that. But what they can do is they outsource that to these bureaucracies. And the bureaucracy can say, oh, okay, well, here's this new rule or here's that new rule. You as a voter have no oversight or no choice or no part of that. And these bureaucracies just, if you're a farmer, the FDA can just come out and say, okay, well, hey, here's our new food standard for whatever thing. And it would be a law that would never get passed, but they can do it in the bureaucracy because, like, you as a voter have no input on what they do. It's insane.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of Thomas Sowell. So fascinating life story from him. It is a crime that people don't know about him. Yeah, government school system, Black History Month. Did we ever even mention Thomas Sowell? Absolutely not. That's how you know it's all a fake lie. But he talked about his time at the Department of Labor, and he's doing all the work. I think he's probably the only one working at the Department of Labor as an intern, and he's presenting information to his superiors. And he came to the realization, and I've heard him talk about this, where he's just like, at that day, I was no longer a Marxist. I became what I am now because I realized the incentive of the Department of Labor was to maintain the Department of Labor, whatever else was happening out there. They had to survive themselves. Their interest was getting more money for their department, not what was better for you. All of these agencies operate for themselves. And I don't think we need any more, like the CDC. Are they looking out in your best interest? Your children with their vaccine schedule? Is the Department of Labor pushing out fake employment numbers, looking out for you in your best interest? Absolutely not.
Well, and it's funny you say that too, because you've got to justify your spending, your budget. You got to justify your job. If you've ever I worked for a large retailer in Minnesota, and they had become this bureaucracy. And it was funny because you knew there was some pencil pusher in corporate that like invented a new audit or a new program or a new this or a new that just to justify their job. And you'd go talk to him, you're like, what the heck is this, Bob? Like, why are you sending this out? Well, I gotta get data, I gotta justify what I'm doing. And it's like, this doesn't make my life in the store any easier, and this doesn't make us any more profitable or that kind of thing. But dude in the cube and everybody watching this show who has worked for a big corporation has seen something come down from corporate, and you look at it and you're like, somebody's justifying their job. That is, if you've never worked a government job, that is the government times 100. There's like
all government jobs
sending you stupid stuff that you're looking at, and like none of this is like when Todd was a principal, like none of this was going to educate children better, but you had all this minutia coming at you from all these people justifying their positions.
I can't. Yeah, we need to do a school episode sometimes. I'm going to keep promoting my own show. American Tribune Live yesterday, I did an hour and a half on property taxes. I am going to be creating about 5 or 6 threads on Twitter detailing everything about property taxes. And when you realize that most of your property taxes go to the government school system, that is how teachers get paid, buildings get built, football fields that we don't need get constructed. I am dealing with 14% property tax increases, Jason. I don't know about you where you are. I imagine it's double digits. And you look around and you're like, I don't think kids are learning anymore. Why are we doubling what I pay every year to the government for failing communist camps? Like
right.
So I'm on a mission. I'm on a personal mission to deep dive into property taxes, get the word out. We need to abolish property taxes. That is the conclusion I have reached. That is the only conclusion, because again, it is government programs taking away your money, your productivity, your assets, your home. Everybody has to live somewhere. They're punishing you for existing. And even if the schools were great, I would still be opposed. But man, when you look at the systems as they operate right now, and you understand the finances like I do on the back end, it's just like, no way. We are coming to a head. Property taxes have got to go.
Well, and I got to say, so like for those who don't watch it now, we have a lot of Facebook viewers and YouTube viewers. Todd streams the American Tribune Live on Tuesdays, Thursdays. You can find it on the Rumble channel or follow him on Twitter X. I keep giving him grief because he needs to put it on the big Rumble channel. He puts it on the American Tribune Live Rumble channel. But you can find, if you just search on Rumble, the American Tribune Live, you can see it. I love how Todd does deep dives into topics because people don't even understand property tax. It just keeps going up. But to share a couple of Minnesota stories, Tim Walz passed all this stupid stuff in Minnesota where they were talking about like free lunch for all the kids. We went from a $19 billion surplus to a deficit, and they raise taxes. But where they get tricky is they shift these feeding requirements into the local school, and then the local school has to make sure food's available. The local school gets some money from your property taxes. So even though the state passed the law, the state doesn't fund it. Your local needs to fund it. And so property taxes go up. So that, understand how all that clicks together, at least in Minnesota. But fun fact, so my buddy Gary and I bought rental houses a number of years ago. I've told this, talked about it before. And we bought them right after the crash. We got a great deal. We had them rehabbed. And our goal was to rent them cheap. Like, we wanted people to live there for a long time. We took on people that had bad credit. And we've had tenants 10 years in some of these. But what's funny, we didn't raise rent. We generally don't raise rent because our expenses don't go up. My property taxes on those houses is now more than the principal payment on the houses after 10 years. Like, that's how much property taxes have gone up about $300 a month on these rental houses we've had for like 12 years. We actually are going to need to raise rent, even though we have a fixed mortgage rate. We have like locked in the principal. They're in the realm of getting paid off. But because my property taxes go up, I got to go to a tenant that I'm giving a great deal on rent and go, I'm going to have to raise your rent because I've got to pay the city of Anoka more to give lunch to all the kids. It's insane.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, mine have doubled in 7 years. And it doesn't take a math genius to extrapolate that out. Okay, they doubled in these 7 years. I don't see Tim Walz and Democrats in Minnesota slowing down. What's to stop them from doubling in another decade? You're pricing people out of their homes. You are literally pricing them out of their homes. Your example is great. You're going to owe more in property taxes than the entire mortgage.
Right. Yeah, it's taxation. Taxation is theft. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. You know what, though? The Democrats pushed it so far, they had to radicalize me on property taxes. If they had just let well enough alone, look, Todd, you're going to pay 2% every year. It's just a little bit. Keep up with inflation. Maybe I don't notice, but they're like, F you, here's 14% on top of the outrageous increases that we did last year. And like, now I'm just over all of it. I was willing to play along, just pretend it didn't exist. And now I'm just over all of it. Now I'm radicalized. Get rid of them entirely. So it is your fault, Democrats, once again.
Now this next thing I wanted to talk about, I got to be a little careful. But because we're still on some of the platforms, I'm just going to say how ironic if you look at J-Lo as one of the celebrities that endorsed Kamala Harris.
I know where you're
going. And if you look at the pictures in the background, just saying, folks, not saying, but there's a major court case going on. And ironically, all those booty shakers that came out that got paid and endorsed Kamala Harris, they're really good friends with some people.
And some celebrities are actually leaving the country for the first time ever after Donald Trump won the election. They always threaten to leave. They never did because life is too good here and they know it. But it's interesting that now they're leaving. I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence, Jason.
I was going to say, I'm sure it is just a pure coincidence. Todd, where do we go next?
Where do we go from here? You know, we talked a little earlier about unity. I am very opposed to unity. I think you're opposed to unity. I think we should all be opposed to unity. And this is why. This was such a great reminder of, yep, they actually would have tried to make your life as miserable as possible. Let me pull up. I have an 18-second clip of Gavin Newsom, of all people. Here we go. Listen to Gavin Newsom as he's talking about his electric vehicle mandate in California. And Elon Musk, who supports Donald Trump.
One of the reasons guys like Elon Musk and others have become so damn successful is because we've set price signals, we've created markets, we've created opportunities for investment. We're the #1 manufacturer in the state for a reason. We continue to be the envy of the world in these policies, and LCFS is a big, big part of that.
That's the shorter clip. Let me explain this clip. Gavin Newsom has his insane EV mandates in California. He's going to want you to all drive electric vehicles. He is talking about keeping Tesla out of the market because he wants to punish a political opponent's donor, confidant, advisor. These people are all frauds. And you think they would have been nice to us if they had won the election? Gavin Newsom is saying, too bad, Elon Musk. I made you in the state of California. That's what he was saying right there. And now I'm gonna, since I created you, have the option to not allow you to thrive in the economy. I'm going to decide other EV vehicles get to drive on the roads instead, simply because he supports Donald Trump.
Actually, we could do a whole episode on electric vehicles. I mean, it's a scam. Like, it's a money grab. They're destroying automakers. We've wrote a bunch of articles on the AmericanTribune.com. What happened was, if you think full circle, the government says everybody needs to drive an electric car. Let's create incentives for car manufacturers to make electric cars. Let's give them loans. Let's give them grants. Let's give them money. So all of a sudden, Ford and Chevy and all these people try to compete with Elon, which, by the way, nobody's EVs are better than Tesla. Hands down. That's why they sell so well. Now, you shifted all this manufacturing. All the executives at the auto loans make a ton of money at the auto companies because they get all this government money coming in for shift in production to electric vehicles. Average people don't buy an EV. Like, they just don't work for what we need. Now, the auto workers get pissed because they see all these big bonuses and big profits that were from government money. So then they strike and they get a big raise, right? But that's unsustainable because this is like one-time shot of infusion of government money. And now long term, these auto workers are going to end up getting laid off because it turns out people don't, like, Ford can't make an EV to compete. But Gavin Newsom, think of the confidence of this and think of this guy. He is up there giving a speech saying, we are going to give financial incentives to electric vehicle manufacturers other than Tesla. And that's okay. Like, just because you're my political, like you supported Donald Trump, I'm not giving your company and your workers the benefits that I will the other. And this just in, Rivian, I think is the company's name, one of the biggest EV manufacturers, which are all run by crazy leftists. They've been bleeding money left and right. They are huge Democrat donors. Joe Biden just approved, I think the number was $6.4 billion of aid to them in the form of a forgivable loan. So if you aren't figuring out how this works, these Democrat politicians push this money to these crazy leftist companies who then filter the money back to the politicians. Oh, by the way, if you look at who they have speak at their meetings or give their trainings, it's all part of that political party circle. And you and I end up paying the bill for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, $6.6 billion, a Biden admin federal loan to Rivian, if that's how you pronounce it, so they can build a factory in Georgia. How is this even remotely fair or legal? So they can hand select conveniently a company that donates to them. Here's $6.6 billion for you to go out and build this car. Tesla had to compete in the free market. They had to create a product that would sell and people would buy. If you're Rivian, then you just get handed billions of dollars. And we're supposed to believe that these are cars that function and that people want when they need to take out a 6.6. They don't even have to take out a loan at a bank. They just can't get handed the money from the government. Make it make sense, Jason.
Well, and here's what I got to say, too, that people have to understand. And we were saying it about the funding of a certain war between Russia and Ukraine. We were giving that financial, the government told us that financial aid is okay because that's a loan. And how many times have you heard, oh, well, that's a loan that, and then like 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden just forgave billions of dollars worth of loans. What that means is the money just gets transferred onto our credit card, not their credit card. So this loan to Rivian, however you pronounce it, they are going to forgive that loan. Like, they haven't done it yet, and they probably won't be able to do it because there'll be a switch over to the Trump administration. But those guys just need to, and it's kind of a money grab because even if they go out of business, it's just going to be something they just wipe out the debt or whatnot. It's, you don't hate the government enough.
Yeah, message of the day every day. Jason, we're coming up in an hour here. I think we have one more fun clip to end on a positive note. A little flashback to Trump and Acosta. Maybe a little harbinger of glorious moments to come here as Trump takes on reporters. And I will say this. I think Donald Trump would be in his right to boot out MSNBC, boot out the New York Times. They're not real news sources. They are pure propaganda. They don't belong in the White House press room. But if they are, we will get glorious moments like this. Folks, flashback to when Jim Acosta got steamrolled by the president. We are in for a treat when he's back in the White House.
Jim Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if you could comment on this disconnect that we seem to have in this country where you are presenting information about what's happening at the border, calling it an invasion, talking about women with duct tape over their mouths and so on. And yet there's a lot of reporting out there. There's a lot of crime data out there. There's a lot of Department of Homeland Security data out there that shows border crossings at a near record low. Undocumented criminals or undocumented immigrants committing crime at lower levels than native-born Americans. What do you say to
you don't really believe that stat? Do you really believe that?
What do you? Well,
Take a look at our federal prisons.
I believe in facts and statistics.
Okay,
and data,
any more quick? Let's go.
Let me just ask you this: what do you say to your critics who say that you are creating a national emergency, that you're concocting a national emergency here in order to get your wall because you couldn't get it through other ways?
What do you think? Do you think I'm creating something? Ask these incredible women who lost their daughters and their sons. This is real. Okay? Because your question is a very political question because you have an agenda. You're CNN. You're fake news. You have an agenda.
I can't wait.
Well, sorry, my blood sugar was a little low. This is how great my wife is, Todd. She heard my little beep alarm from my blood sugar was going low. And she was watching in her home office. She's like, let me bring you some sugar. So I have the best wife ever.
Wife of the year. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for keeping my partner on the show here.
There you go. So I apologize for eating a York peppermint patty.
Hey,
But anyways, Jim Acosta was talking, and this is an important thing to understand. He was talking about crime data and crime stats and immigration thing. And folks, the numbers they're going off of are lies. We've written articles about it. We've done podcasts about it. We've done deep dives about it. But like, these just aren't real numbers. And Jim Acosta, and that's why, like, I hope President Trump handles the media differently this last time, because if Jim Acosta, I don't believe it, but if he believes those numbers are real and he's asking a legitimate question, but Donald Trump's up there going, talk to people in these neighborhoods, talk to American citizens, like the crime's up, and anybody telling you crime's down is lying to you. And it's truly a remarkable thing.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the border when we go to Rumble Only in a few minutes here, folks. We got Tom Homan making some bold statements. We've got these woke mayors in big blue cities saying they're going to defy the federal government's efforts to deport illegal criminals. I hate that argument so much. They're like, we have stats that show illegals commit crime at a lower rate than American-born citizens. Yeah, here's the thing, though. They shouldn't be committing any crimes. I don't care what their crime rate is. They're here illegally. That's already a crime. But if you're going to talk about violent crime, that number should be 0 because they shouldn't have come in the first place. Any violent crime in the hands of an illegal is a crime that, by definition, should not have been committed. So it's all disingenuous. It is all fake news. You don't hate these people enough.
Well, what's funny, too, is when they say, well, the crime rate of illegal immigrants are down. Nobody even knows how many illegal immigrants are in the country. So how can you even have a denominator of your equation so that you can say what the crime rate is? I mean, like the news media has been stuck on like 12 or 20 million like illegals
it's
for like
20
3
million
decades.
My entire life. My whole life. I don't think that number's ever changed.
Right. Yeah, CNN. Oh, there's 12 million illegal immigrants. And it's like, well, like 20 million more just came in. Well, yeah. And like a bunch of them snuck in. How do you know how many there are? Well, they're estimating. Like, you wouldn't let us ask on the census, like you make it up.
How many kids have gone missing, Jim Acosta? These people it's beyond delusional. It's evil. They're promoting evil at this point.
Ugh. Well, we got to talk immigration, though. So I think it's going to be time for us to switch to Rumble Only. So, folks, thank you for tuning into our show. We stream on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and Twitter are our favorite platforms. Rumble, if we got some boomers in the audience, it's a platform kind of like YouTube. Go over there, just search The American Tribune. We dropped the link on here, but Facebook, some of those platforms don't like it. We get a lot of viewers on Facebook. So we love being on there, but unfortunately there's just some things like we're going to say some stuff about immigration that Facebook's not going to like. So we got to do that over on Rumble Only. So on that note, happy Thanksgiving to YouTube, Facebook viewers. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you on Rumble and Twitter on the other side. Todd, I'll let you close it out while we switch over to Rumble Only.
How about some more more promotions, folks? Rumble, The American Tribune, 60 seconds. See you there. Here we go.